Robin Williams dropped the microphone. Silence. The audience held its breath. Because the person who walked onto the stage was his teacher. The Comedy Store in Los Angeles, 1997. A Thursday night like any other. Robin Williams was doing what he did best, making people laugh until their faces hurt, until they forgot their problems, until the world felt lighter. His energy was electric, bouncing from character to character, accent to accent, pulling laughter out of the crowd like a magician pulling rabbits from a hat. But then something happened that no one expected. In the middle of a bit about childhood memories, Robin stopped. Just stopped. His hands, usually animated and never still, fell to his sides. His eyes, always scanning the room for the next laugh, fixed on someone in the third row. The smile faded from his face, replaced by something raw and unguarded. The audience didn't know whether this was part of the act. Was this a new bit? A character moment? But those who knew Robin, really knew him, recognized this look. This wasn't performance. This was real. And what happened next would reveal a story that Robin had carried in silence for 30 years. If you want to know how this moment changed everything Robin thought he knew about his own journey, subscribe now because the most powerful revelation of his life is still ahead. The woman in the third row was elderly, maybe 75, with silver hair and glasses that caught the stage lights. She wore a simple cardigan, the kind teachers wear. Her hands were folded in her lap, and she was looking at Robin with an expression of quiet pride mixed with something else: recognition, memory, love. Robin's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. His trademark rapid-fire delivery, the engine that had powered 1,000 performances, had simply shut down. The silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10. An eternity in comedy. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "Mrs. Patterson?" The woman nodded, tears already forming in her eyes. The audience was confused now. Who was this woman? Why had Robin Williams, one of the most confident performers alive, suddenly become a child again in front of their eyes? To understand what happened next, you have to go back. Back to 1963. Back to a small private school in Detroit. Back to a 12-year-old boy named Robin McLaurin Williams who believed he was invisible. Young Robin was overweight, shy, isolated. His father was often away on business. His mother was busy with her own life. The family had money but not connection. Robin spent most of his time alone in a large house, creating characters and voices to keep himself company. At school, he was the kid who sat in the back, who didn't raise his hand, who tried to take up as little space as possible. He had learned early that being noticed meant being hurt. Better to be invisible. Better to be quiet. Until the day he walked into Mrs. Patterson's 8th grade English class. Margaret Patterson had been teaching for 23 years. She had seen thousands of students pass through her classroom. She knew how to spot the ones who were hiding. And Robin Williams was hiding behind a wall so thick that most people couldn't see him at all. But Mrs. Patterson saw him. She saw something in that quiet, overweight boy that would change the course of his entire life. And what she did next was so simple, yet so profound, that Robin would spend the rest of his life trying to repay it. 3 weeks into the semester, Mrs. Patterson assigned a creative project. Students had to perform a monologue, any style, any subject, 3 minutes minimum. Most kids groaned. Robin felt his stomach drop. Speaking in front of the class was his worst nightmare. The night before the presentation, he considered faking sick. Considered it seriously. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way Mrs. Patterson had looked at him that afternoon when she handed back his essay on The Catcher in the Rye. She had written at the top, "You see things others miss. That's a gift." Nobody had ever called anything about Robin a gift before. So he showed up. And when his name was called, he walked to the front of the room on legs that felt like water. The other kids were already smirking, anticipating disaster. Robin stood there, frozen, for what felt like hours but was probably 10 seconds. Then something happened. Something he couldn't explain then and would struggle to explain for the rest of his life. A voice came out of him. Not his voice, a character's voice. An old man complaining about modern music. The character was funny, observational, specific. The words just flowed. The class laughed. Really laughed. Robin kept going, switching to another character, then another. For 3 minutes, he wasn't the invisible fat kid anymore. He was alive, electric, seen. When he finished, the room erupted in applause. Real applause, not the polite kind. Kids who had never spoken to him were high-fiving him. But Robin was looking at Mrs. Patterson. She was standing in the back of the room, and she was crying. After class, she asked him to stay. When everyone else had left, she sat down across from him and said something that he would hear in his head for the next 34 years, through every performance, every movie, every moment of doubt. Robin, what you did today was magic. Real magic. You have a gift that could bring joy to millions of people. But more importantly, you have the ability to make people feel less alone. Don't ever hide that. The world needs what you have. Robin tried to speak, but his throat was too tight. All he could do was nod. Mrs. Patterson reached into her desk and pulled out a small, worn notebook. I want you to have this, she said. Write down every character you create. Every voice. Every observation. This is your laboratory. Promise me you'll fill it. Robin took the notebook. On the first page, in her careful handwriting, she had written, To Robin Williams, who will change the world with laughter. I believe in you. MP. That notebook became his most treasured possession. He filled it, then filled 10 more just like it. When he got into Juilliard, he brought it with him. When he landed, Mork and Mindy, it was in his trailer. When he won his Oscar, it was in his jacket pocket. But he had never told anyone this story. Not his wife. Not his closest friends. This was the secret origin of Robin Williams, and Mrs. Patterson was the only other person who knew it. Subscribe and leave a comment, because what happened next on that stage revealed a promise Robin had been carrying for 3 decades. Back in the Comedy Store, 1997, Robin stepped down from the stage. The microphone hung forgotten from his hand. He walked toward Mrs. Patterson's row, and the audience instinctively parted to let him through. He knelt down in front of her seat. This man, this giant of comedy who had performed for presidents and packed stadiums, knelt down like a child in front of his teacher. You came, he whispered. Of course I came, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I've seen every special, every movie. I told you that you would change the world, Robin. And you did. No, Robin said, shaking his head, tears streaming down his face now, making no effort to hide them. You don't understand. You changed my world first. You were the first person who saw me. Really saw me. I was invisible, and you made me real. Mrs. Patterson reached out and touched his face, the way a mother touches a child. You were never invisible, sweetheart. You were just waiting for permission to shine. I just gave you permission. You did all the rest. Robin pulled something from his pocket. It was small, wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it carefully, and there it was, the original notebook. Worn, pages yellowed, held together with tape in places. He opened it to the first page, where her words were still visible. To Robin Williams, who will change the world with laughter. I believe in you. I kept it, he said. Every single day of my life, I kept it. Every time I doubted myself, every time I thought I wasn't good enough, I read what you wrote. Your words saved me more times than you'll ever know. The audience was silent now, but it was a different kind of silence. This wasn't the silence of confusion. This was the silence of witnessing something sacred, something true. Mrs. Patterson took the notebook in her trembling hands. She looked at it, then at Robin, then back at the notebook. I remember the day I gave you this, she said. I remember thinking that if I could reach just one student in my entire career, if I could help just one person find their voice, then everything would be worth it. Robin, you were that one person. You were my one. Can I tell them? Robin asked, gesturing to the audience. "Can I tell them what you did for me?" She nodded, wiping her eyes with a tissue that someone had passed down the row. Robin stood up, but he didn't return to the stage. He stood there in the aisle, microphone in one hand, notebook in the other, and he told the story. All of it. The lonely childhood, the invisible boy, the day he performed in class, the notebook, the promise he made to himself that if he ever made it, if he ever became someone, he would find Mrs. Patterson and thank her. "But I got scared," Robin admitted. "I got famous, and years went by, and I was terrified to contact her because what if she didn't remember me? What if that moment that meant everything to me was just another Tuesday for her? What if I had built up this moment in my head so much that the reality couldn't possibly match it?" He looked at Mrs. Patterson. "But my daughter Zelda, she tracked you down. She wrote to you. She told you about this show tonight. And you came." "I came," Mrs. Patterson said, "because some students you never forget. And Robin, you were unforgettable from the very first day. What happened next wasn't planned. Robin Williams, the performer who could fill 2 hours with improvised genius, who never ran out of material, who could make anything funny, did something he rarely did. He just stood there. No jokes. No characters. No deflection. Just a man, grateful, vulnerable, real." The audience stood up. All of them. A standing ovation that went on for 5 minutes straight. But Robin wasn't looking at them. He was looking at Mrs. Patterson, and she was looking back, and in that moment, 30 years collapsed into nothing. After the show, backstage, Robin sat with Mrs. Patterson for 2 hours. They looked through the notebook together, page by page. She told him stories about teaching, about the other students she'd had over the years, about retiring and moving to Arizona. "Why did you come back to LA?" Robin asked. "I didn't come back to LA," she said with a small smile. "I came back for you. When your daughter's letter arrived, I knew I had to be here. I had to see what you'd become. And Robin." She took his hand. "You became exactly who you were always meant to be. Not because of what I did. Because of who you are." Robin shook his head. "No. You don't understand. That day in your classroom, you didn't just encourage me. You saved me. I was disappearing. I was becoming smaller and smaller, and I thought that's what I deserved. But you saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. You gave me permission to take up space. To be loud. To be seen. Everything I've done, every laugh I've earned, every life I've maybe made a little bit lighter, it all started with you." Mrs. Patterson was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that Robin would think about for the rest of his life. "Then my job is complete," she said. "Because the greatest gift a teacher can give isn't knowledge. It's belief. I believed in you when you couldn't believe in yourself. And now you've spent your whole life making other people believe in themselves. That's the real magic, Robin. That's the legacy." Before she left that night, Robin gave her something. It was a check, substantial, made out to her name. "I want you to travel," he said. "I want you to see the world. You spent your whole life giving. Let me give something back." She looked at the check and laughed. "Robin Williams, I'm 75 years old. What am I going to do with all this money?" "Live," Robin said simply. "Really live. The way you taught me to." She folded the check carefully and put it in her purse. Then she pulled out a pen and the notebook. On the last page, in the same careful handwriting from 30 years ago, she wrote, "To Robin Williams, who changed the world exactly as I knew he would. The student became the teacher. I am so proud of you. Always, MP." That notebook stayed with Robin until the day he died. And in his will, he left instructions that it should go to Mrs. Patterson, with a letter that said simply, "This was always yours. Thank you for giving me my voice. I tried to use it well." Share and subscribe, so this story of belief, gratitude, and the power of one person seeing another will never be forgotten. The years after that night, Robin and Mrs. Patterson stayed in touch. He called her on holidays. He sent her tickets to his movies premieres. When she was diagnosed with cancer 2 years later, he flew to Arizona every week to sit with her, to make her laugh, to just be present. At her funeral in 2000, Robin gave the eulogy. He stood in front of a small crowd of teachers, former students, and family members, and he said, "Margaret Patterson taught English. But what she really taught was possibility. She looked at a scared kid who thought he was nobody, and she said, 'You're somebody.' And because she said it, because she believed it, I started to believe it too." He held up the worn notebook one last time. This is what one teacher can do. This is what one moment of belief can create. Mrs. Patterson didn't just change my life. She taught me that we all have the power to see each other, truly see each other, and in that seeing, to change everything. Years later, when Robin's own darkness became too much to bear, that notebook was found on his bedside table. Open to the first page. To those words written so long ago. "I believe in you." Sometimes the greatest gift we can give another person is the simple act of believing in them when they cannot believe in themselves. Mrs. Patterson gave that gift to a lonely boy. And that boy spent his entire life trying to give it back to the world. Subscribe, share, and remember, you never know whose life you might change by simply seeing them.